So, return of day 8, and I'm a bit slower than desired mechanically. Obviously, this is something which we're going to have, because not every day we're going to be best mechanically. However, one thing we can control is our piece control. And our piece control is good, and we're making good peaks, and we're taking very little damage when we are actually playing. Obviously, this is what is meant to happen as we get better throughout the challenge, and I would say that we're going very well here. Our free building is decent, but could still be a lot better. However, it's still much better than when we were using Quix's routine, which is obviously the one routine which we're using which lacked the free building, which is a big factor as to why it's worse than Peter Bots and why Pollo's might be still better. Furthermore, our aim was feeling really good, and today we had the aim level of our pro, something important as we wanted to be at the level of the pros by the time that this challenge is finished or by this year is finished. And as you can see, we're making good progress here, and let's see if we can continue. Day 9, our piece control was slightly better today, and with gradual improvements this routine could be better than Quick's purely on consistency. With this in mind, however, our free building was partially worse than yesterday. Of course, this does matter a lot as we, like I said, want to get on the level of the pros. However, this is one thing that we can improve, and we've got plenty of time to get done, because obviously form is temporary but class is permanent, as they say in football, the beautiful game. Now, as you can see here, however, we are still doing very well. As the day continued, our free building would obviously get better. This is important as it didn't mess with our mental, something which is very important to be able to play like the pros. Despite all this, our aim was even better, of course. The most important part of any shooting game is your ability to track, and today we are doing brilliantly. However, would this continue, or would I end up burning out from this challenge? Well, if you're rooting against me, it wouldn't be your time just yet, because today we are playing just as well as we did in piece control. This is important as we are making good peaks and good edits, and still playing to the level which we were yesterday. My free building was still relatively the same level. I was feeling good, and I felt like I would struggle to burn out with how good this routine is. Of course, the free building is very good for your mechanics and very good for training, something which is very important as you want to be able to play like the pros, especially in creative. Something which we would hopefully have at a consistent level throughout the entire challenge from here on outwards. However, we can only look and see if we can. To further boost my confidence, my aim was still great and was consistently at the level of a pro. Halfway through this section of the challenge, and our piece control was good. However, our peaks weren't the same level, and I would take damage I could easily avoid. This is natural and something which was bound to happen since I was experimenting with different peaks during this challenge. However, our free build was also lacking in terms of speed, and my reaction time was less than it should be. Obviously, this is important because if I can't free build like the pros, then that's another reason why I'm not like the pros and I can't hang with them. Something important that I want to be able to do, and I can't do that if I'm not at the level that they are at in terms of free building. Obviously, my controller binds aren't optimal, but I'm going to have a video on that coming out soon, and that will explain why they're like that. But I'd still know I can get better, just like how my aim throughout this entire challenge has been great, and I felt like I had the aim just as good as the pros. Something very good for my mental, and something which was making me get a lot of kills, and some which I couldn't get before. And to back all this up, I proved myself in Champion Reload, where I had clutch a win for my team right here, sliding in with brilliant movement, getting everything out of all the kills. And then, because this guy was a muppet, I ended up winning the game, and I have to mute the clip right here because of copyright, because I use moments and obviously I end up using songs. So it's day 12, with 3 days left to go this section. My mechanics were still consistently good, and I was experimenting with different piece control techniques like I was in day 11. Obviously, this meant that I would be conceding damage, but this is natural since I was experimenting, looking to see if I can set up better peaks and just have a better fighting than the pros, which I can then apply these peaks into my fighting and get fighting just as good of or better than the pros. Now, my free building was slightly slower than I would like, but it was still better than when I was training like Quicks or even He Who Shall Not Be Named, for reasons which I cannot go into, which is natural since I've practiced longer than when I've trained like any of those players, and soon I'll be even better. Which is natural because that's just how Fortnite works. The more you practice, the better you get, unless you get burnout. Now, my aim was still consistently good and was improving well. Of course, my aim is one of the most important things, and since I'm on controller, is one of the things which needs to be properly good for me to be able to compete with the best players in the world and just anyone better than me. And I was showing this in reload as I was playing well and almost clutched another one for my team in champion right here. Ooh, that's a clean knock. Oh, there we go. Come on, cannot be conceding damage like that. My days, holding. Just don't die, bro. Please just don't die. Heard you both do that? No. Oh, come on. No way, bro. Day 13. With 2 days left of this section, my base control was looking good. My peaks were also just as good and I would take little damage. My free building, however, would gradually get better throughout the drill and I would be back at my usual level. Also, all this is very important to have because one of the most important things about Fortnite is building and making good peaks. And if you can't do either of those, then you may as well just go to zero build. And that's hoping that your aim is good. And because I switched from casual to sweat about 2 years ago, I need to make sure that I can do that. In fact, no, it was 1 year ago. However, despite all this, my aim was noticeably worse than before. First time this has happened in quite a while. Was this be a sign of fatigue, or was it just a bad day for my aim? Despite this, I played alright in reload, but didn't have any real highlights in reload. However, I wouldn't have any highlights to show for it, unfortunately, but that's just how the game goes. The final day wasn't what I expected it to be. I would end up starting with my piece control as usual, and as you can see, I was doing actually fairly decent. Also, I just got to none, and I was actually playing quite well. But then, what ended up happening was that I got asked, and I gladly accepted to go and fill for a trio scrim. And as you can see there, as proof, it was literally last second, and and one of them was literally just begging for me. That didn't go too well, as we ended up dying straight away, which wasn't exactly great, granted, but I mean, it was the first time I played a trio scrim, and none of us exactly did too well, to be honest, and it's something to improve on. Now, obviously, and where we end up finishing off with free building for the rest of the entire day, scrapping the aim training. If you enjoyed this video, then please go and watch the first 7 days of this challenge below.